Toxic love feels like fate. Here's why you stay, part 1. The spell of toxic love. Why you can't walk away. She knows he's no good for her. Everyone tells her to leave. She even tells herself. But still, she stays. Why? Because it doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like fate. Like unfinished business. Like a love too powerful to walk away from. Her name is Maya. But it could be anyone. It could be you. Because toxic love doesn't show up as a monster. It shows up as chemistry, as fire, as that one person who knows exactly how to make you feel seen and unseen, all in the same breath. And when you are starving for love, even poison tastes like medicine. Let's be real. You can know a relationship is hurting you and still not be able to leave. That's not weakness. That's wiring. When love becomes a spiritual trap, it's because your nervous system is addicted to the chaos. The high when it's good, the devastation when it's not. The cycle, the drama, the ritual of almost leaving, then getting pulled back in. You confuse intensity with depth, manipulation with passion, and pain with purpose. Because if it hurts this bad, surely it must mean something, right? Here's what no one tells you. Toxic relationships don't start toxic. They start electric. They feel like someone finally sees you. They mirror your wounds, your longing, your need to be chosen. And when you're still trying to heal childhood ghosts through adult love, you don't see the red flags. You fall in love with them. You don't run, you romanticize. Because the chaos feels familiar. And we always return to what feels familiar, even if it's what broke us. Let me tell you what Maya told herself every night. He just needs time. Maybe I'm too sensitive. We've been through too much to walk away now. He's not always like this. And in a twisted way, it was love. But not the kind that liberates. The kind that feeds on your wounds and calls it destiny. Every time she tried to leave, he'd say all the right things. Tears, promises. I can't live without you. And part of her wanted to be the one who saved him. But here's the trap. If you need to shrink, bend, beg, or bleed to be loved, it's not love. It's emotional survival dressed up as romance. So why do you stay? Because there's a part of you that still believes pain is the price of love. That maybe if you're good enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, they'll finally become the person you imagined in the beginning. But that's not love. That's a spiritual hostage situation. One where your heart keeps paying the ransom with your peace. Here's the deepest truth. You're not in love with them anymore. You're in love with the idea of who they could be, and the version of you that once felt whole with them. But you can't heal by returning to what broke you. You can't wake up in the same dream and expect a different ending. So the question isn't just, should I stay or should I leave? The real question is, what part of me still believes I need to be hurt to be loved? Because until you answer that, you'll keep calling pain home. If this story echoed in your soul, speak it. Drop a comment below and tell us, what are you still holding on to and why? And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. Why toxic love feels like fate. Here's why you stay, part 2, love or trauma. Bond. The hidden forces that keep you stuck. You don't stay because you're weak. You stay because your body believes you're still in danger. And this relationship is the only place that understands the language of your wounds. That's not love. That's trauma bonding. And until you see it for what it is, you'll keep calling pain passion. and chaos connection. Maya thought she was in love, but what she was really in was a trauma loop disguised as intimacy. Every time he hurt her, he'd come back with tenderness, apologies, tears, and every time she forgave him, she felt needed again. It felt like healing, like progress, but it wasn't. It was just the nervous system doing what it was trained to do, confuse unpredictability with love, because that's what it learned in childhood. Let's pause right here and ask something deep. When was the first time you had to earn love? Was it as a child, being good so your parents wouldn't get mad? Was it hiding your feelings so you wouldn't be shamed? Was it always being strong so no one else would fall apart? If so, your system learned that love isn't safe, it's conditional. And now, when someone repeats that dynamic in adulthood, it feels familiar. Not good, but familiar. And that familiarity feels like home, even when it hurts. Trauma bonding isn't just psychological, it's chemical. It's the spike of cortisol when you fight, and the hit of dopamine when you make up. It's the addiction to relief that comes after pain. The cycle becomes your rhythm. Fight, cry, apologize, sex, repeat. Each time the brain tells you, see, we're fixing it. But you're not fixing it. You're just stuck in the loop, getting high off survival and calling it depth. Here's the dangerous part. The worse they treat you, the more you believe you have to earn their love. And when they finally throw you a crumb of kindness, you call it a feast. You post the highlight reel. You ignore the intuition. You stay, not because you don't know better, but because you still believe this pain has a purpose. You think it's making you stronger, wiser, more forgiving. But here's the soul-ripping truth. You're not becoming stronger. You're becoming more tolerant of your own suffering. Let's get brutally honest. Are you growing or just surviving? Are you forgiving or just avoiding the truth? Are you staying out of love or out of fear? Because staying out of fear is not compassion, it's self-abandonment. And staying because you see their potential, that's not love either. That's a bet, and you're paying for it with your peace. You don't heal your childhood wounds by replaying them in adult relationships. You don't prove your worth by suffering harder. You don't transform someone by staying through their cruelty. You're not their healer. You're your own. Here's what Maya finally realized. Every time she stayed, she wasn't choosing him. She was choosing the version of herself that was too afraid to be alone. And when she finally stopped romanticizing his pain, she remembered who she was before he rewrote her boundaries. That's when the spell broke. Now here's your mirror moment. What does your body feel right before you excuse their behavior? What belief keeps you hooked? They need me? This is what love takes? What would your life look like if you didn't have to keep fixing someone to feel worthy? Write it down. Don't flinch, because truth burns before it frees. If this spoke to the ache in your chest, say so in the comments. Tell us, what are you really bonded to, the person or the pain? And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. This series isn't for entertainment, it's for liberation. Next up, Part 3. The illusion of growth, when pain feels like purpose. We're going to dismantle the spiritual lie that says, if it hurts, it must be sacred. Why toxic love feels like fate. Here's why you stay. Part 3. The illusion of growth. When pain feels like purpose. Somewhere along the way, we started believing a dangerous lie. If love hurts, it must be real. If it breaks you, it must be growing you. If it tests your spirit, it must be sacred. And so you stay. You stay in the fire, convinced it's alchemy. You call it a soul contract, a divine mirror, a karmicus cotes, ameliet meg kel zakitane. But what if it's none of those things? What if it's just pain disguised as purpose? And you've confused emotional damage for spiritual depth. Maya once said, "I think this relationship is teaching me how to be more patient, more forgiving." But the truth was, she wasn't becoming more loving. She was becoming more tolerant of pain. There's a difference between healing and enduring. One liberates you. The other slowly erases you. Let's clear the fog. Not all growth is sacred. Some of it is just survival. Yes, pain can awaken you. Yes, challenge can build you. But only when it brings you closer to your truth, not when it trains you to betray it. Here's the trap. You stay in toxic love because it feels like it's transforming you. You've cried more, felt more, forgiven more than ever before. But if you look closer, you're not evolving. You're enduring cycles you were never meant to accept. And you call that growth? That's not expansion. That's erosion. We need to talk about spiritual bypassing. That's when you use spiritual ideas to justify emotional self-destruction. They're just triggering my inner child. This is part of my soul's journey. I manifested this relationship to heal my wounds. Maybe. But here's the real question. Is this connection actually healing you, or just reactivating your trauma and calling it divine? Because not everything painful is spiritual. Sometimes it's just painful. We live in a world where pain is romanticized, where suffering is worn like a badge, where people mistake loyalty for love and wounds for wisdom. But suffering doesn't make you enlightened. It just makes you tired. What makes you wise is your ability to listen to pain without normalizing it. What makes you free is learning the difference between sacred growth and soul corrosion. Let's get real. Are you calling it growth because you are scared to leave? Are you staying because the pain at least gives you a sense of purpose? Are you confusing being triggered with being transformed? If so, pause, breathe, remember. Healing doesn't require you to suffer harder. It requires you to tell the truth. Here's the heart of it. You are not here to be someone's emotional battleground. You are not here to prove your strength by surviving love that hurts. You are not here to spiritualize abuse just because someone once lit a fire in your soul. Growth should feel like awakening, not shrinking, not second-guessing your worth, not apologizing for needing peace. When Maya finally stopped calling it a lesson, she started calling it what it really was. A life she didn't want anymore. She didn't need to stay in the fire to prove she was strong. She needed to walk out of it to prove she remembered her worth. Now here's your soul work. What belief is keeping you in a relationship that's slowly breaking you? Where are you confusing discomfort with divine assignment? What would it feel like to grow in peace instead of pain? Write your answers. Speak them out loud. Let them sting, because clarity is what comes right before freedom. If this cracked something open, let it rise. And in the comments, tell us, what pain have you been calling purpose? And if you're ready to go even deeper, subscribe now. Because in part 4, choosing yourself, the guilt, the grief, the power, we'll walk into the fire and out the other side. This is where you finally choose you. Part 4. The mirror breaks. when the fantasy starts to crumble. There comes a moment in every toxic relationship where the fantasy starts to crack. You don't always see it clearly, but you feel it. In the silence between texts, in the tension beneath every "I love you," in the way your nervous system no longer relaxes around them, even when they're being kind. That moment is sacred. It means part of you is waking up. The spell is weakening. The story you've told yourself, the one where this is meant to be, where they'll change, where you just need to love harder, is beginning to fall apart. And you feel torn, because the pain is real, but so was the love, or at least the longing for love. Let's tell the truth. Sometimes we don't fall in love with the person. We fall in love with the feeling of finally being chosen. We fall in love with who we thought we could become if they just loved us right. That's not love. That's identity construction. And when the relationship starts to fail, it doesn't just hurt. It feels like you're failing, because we fused their approval to our worth. And now, their neglect feels like confirmation. See? I was never lovable to begin with. But that's the wound talking. That's the abandoned inner child trying to turn chaos into meaning. You're not crazy for loving them. You're not broken for holding on. You were just trying to finish a story that started long before they ever arrived. And here's what's wild. Sometimes toxic love comes with moments of real connection, real laughter, real depth. And that's what makes it so hard to leave, because you don't want to throw away the good, but you're drowning in the harm. That's when you have to ask yourself, am I staying for what's real, or for what I hope will become real again? Because spiritual traps aren't just about abuse or control. They're about staying stuck in a relationship that once gave you life, but now only gives you longing. The kind of longing that keeps you hoping more than it keeps you healing. So here's the shift. It's not about whether they're a bad person. It's about whether you're still growing in this soil or just surviving in it. Because if the version of you in this relationship is smaller, quieter, more anxious, less alive, then it doesn't matter what soul contract you think exists. Your nervous system is telling you the truth. And the truth is this: love that requires you to betray yourself, to keep it, is not love. You can love someone deeply and still walk away. You can forgive them and still never speak to them again. You can honor what was beautiful without sacrificing what is sacred, your peace. This is the mirror breaking, not your failure, but your awakening. Don't glue it back together. Step through it. Why toxic love feels like fate. Here's why you stay. Part 5. Freeing the soul. How to leave the trap and rebuild from truth. Let's tell the truth. Sometimes you don't stay because you're scared. You stay because it feels good. The sex is incredible. They pay your rent. They drive a nice car. They feed your ego. They give you just enough to keep the hope alive. It's not just trauma that keeps you hooked. It's the pleasure, the perks, the comfort in the chaos. And that's the part no one wants to admit. You tell yourself it's complicated. But really, it's convenient. They might be toxic, but the lifestyle feels secure. The bedroom feels like escape. The idea of starting over feels like too much work. So you stay. Not because you believe it's love, but because it's familiar. And in moments, it's still delicious. And that's the most dangerous kind of trap. The one that doesn't always hurt, just enough to keep you addicted. Maya knew that part of her didn't want to leave. She missed the way he held her when he wasn't cruel, the spontaneous trips, the status, the way people looked at them like they were perfect together. But she also knew. She was slowly disappearing, smiling for pictures, crying in private, convincing herself it was worth it. It wasn't. She was just trading her soul for comfort and calling it love. Here's the truth most people avoid. Toxic relationships work until you wake up, until you realize the pleasure is a pacifier, the security is a leash, the passion is a trap. The perks are expensive when the price is you. You can't build peace on a foundation of performance. You can't call it love if it only thrives when you're quiet about your needs. So how do you leave? How do you break the trap when it's laced with pleasure, money, nostalgia, and hope? You stop asking if they're good or bad. You start asking what this relationship is costing your truth. Because if staying means shrinking, if it means silencing your intuition, if it means loving someone more than you're allowed to love yourself, then the pleasure isn't pleasure anymore. It's prison with a plush mattress. And now, brother, here's the final transformation. Your homework, the exit ritual. This isn't just about leaving them. It's about returning to you. 1. Name the true cost. In a journal or aloud, list what parts of myself I've silenced to keep this love alive. What I fear losing if I leave, even if it's good sex or rent is paid. What this comfort is actually costing my long-term peace. Be honest, greedy, petty, real. Truth is the key that unlocks the door. 2. Create a closing ceremony. You don't need closure from them. You need it from yourself. Write a goodbye letter to the version of you that stayed. Burn it. Rip it. Bury it. Say out loud, I release the lie that I must suffer to be loved. I return to my wholeness now. I do not beg. I do not barter. I choose me. 3. Build a new inner contract every morning for the next 7 days. Say, I am not afraid to start over. I am not here to be chosen. I am here to be free. Say it until it becomes your nervous system's new prayer. If you made it to this point in the series, you're not weak. You're ready. You're not lost. You're awakening. And if this spoke to you, don't leave quietly. Drop a comment and tell us, what was the hardest part to let go of? And what are you finally reclaiming now? And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because my therapist isn't here to soothe you. It's here to liberate you.